This week, I am joined by a good friend of mine and kind of an old soul, Mr. Nick Dieker from Nick's Knifeworks. And Nick is the kind of guy that likes things just a little old school. He likes hand forged blades, he likes leather, he likes making his own feather fletchings out of the most recent turkey that he harvested. He likes traditional archery, and we just bond over our love for the old school stuff in life. We also talk about our thoughts on some of the new technology in hunting and what it has done to hunting, and we just have a really good conversation about all things blades, broadheads, tuning bows, and just have some fun along the way. Nick also harvested his first buck with a longbow this past year. It's a phenomenal story, and I can't wait for you to hear it, guys. As always, this episode is brought to you by our good friends over at ScentLock. I hope you enjoy the conversation.
Welcome to Bear Archery's Hunting 101 podcast, where hunters new and old come to learn and find inspiration from stories of hunts gone by. Everyone is welcome to enjoy the outdoor way of life, and there is no better time to start than right now. So let's head into the great outdoors with your host, Dylan Ray.
Guys, when it comes to hunting and being outdoors, I believe there's one product that I use more than anything. That's not my bow. That's not my boots. It's not my anything else other than a binocular harness. If I am outside doing anything outdoors, I've got a binocular harness on. Whether I'm shooting, whether I'm hanging tree stands, whether I'm out hiking, it doesn't matter. If I'm outdoors doing just about anything, I've always got my binocular harness. Alaskan Guide Creations does it and does it very, very well. I've been using these now for about 8 years, and I absolutely love them. The new system with all the magnets are really good, really accessible, very customizable. Guys, if you're in the market for a new binocular harness, I would highly, highly, highly encourage you to check out Alaskan Guide Creations because they are phenomenal. All right, Nick. So I want to start, man. Everybody's excited about this knife giveaway. I've already seen and heard just a lot of comments and feedback about how pretty that knife is.
Yeah.
So tell me about the materials used.
Sure.
Time it took, all that stuff.
Yeah, let me grab it right here.
Here, you talk about it. I'll show the camera. If you're watching if you're not on YouTube or Carbon TV, you can see that on the video. Tell them what this knife's made out of.
So the blade steel is 80 CRV2, which is an extremely durable material. It's going to hold up really well to seriously hard use. A lot of durability, but also maintains a good edge retention. As far as high carbon steels go, it's one of my favorites. The handle material is a stabilized curly mango. That's the wood. It's a beautiful, tight curly mango with some orange and green G10 liners and spacers. And then hand tooled, hand carved, hand painted, hand stitched sheath, all that leather work's all done by hand. It takes me forever. But I really wanted to do something that would catch people's attention. You know, when you're looking at, like, I don't know about your social media feed, but mine in particular, the way the algorithm is like,
it's full of knives.
Yeah, it's full of knives all day, every day. I see hundreds of knives.
Mine's full of stand-up comedians.
Really?
I love it.
Well, I see a ton of knives day in and day out, and I'm making knives constantly.
Yeah.
And, you know, when you're scrolling through your feed, you see that.
Yeah.
It's something that'll catch your eye. And I think anybody that were to win this, or anybody that were to order one of these and buy one of these from me, could be proud to own it. I mean, it's just a really, really cool looking combination and turned out great. So super excited for whoever's going to win this and the other prizes. It's an awesome giveaway. And it's going to be great.
Did you hand draw the deer? Or did you have a stencil or something?
So the deer itself, I drew on paper, like just with a pen and paper. And then I lay that onto the leather and go over that
Gotcha.
with just a little pointy piece of metal, basically, that just puts a very faint line on the leather. Then I start carving.
I think that's what's most impressive to me about it is like you look at that deer and I'm like, crap, dude. Like he's an artist. Like he's not just a knife maker. Like that's an incredibly good looking deer. I mean, shadows on his face, and I was like, good Lord. So I've challenged you to on my neck sheath to put the bear logo on there, the podcast logo with the bear on there.
Yeah, it's going to be fun. I have really come to respect the paint portion of that as being an art all on its own. That's where I've improved a lot, but I still struggle with getting the tooling is awesome. Before I touch it with a paintbrush, the tooling looks great. But then once you start painting, it's like you got to maintain the depth. You got to maintain the texture. You got to maintain all these things to really bring it to life, to make the paint improve the look and not take away from it. And so I'm excited to try your bear logo because it'll be something totally new. I've done some bears, but not like that one, and it's going to be a fun challenge.
Yeah, I'm excited to see it. Now, for those of you who don't know, the rest of the giveaway, we've got a 40-pound Bear Grizzly recurve, and then my guys over at Powder and String Outfitters here in Wellington, Kansas, my local gun store and about to be bear dealer. So if you're in the area and you want bear bows, should have them pretty soon. They are doing a dozen custom-built arrows from Deer Crossing Archery. I am going to personally build your arrows. We're actually this is the first podcast I've ever done from my dojo, from my bow little shop area here, and so I'm going to personally build your arrows, and however you want them spec'd out, total arrow weight, spine, components, everything that you want, however you want it fletched, whether you want trad vanes or feathers, or even if you don't want to use them for this recurve and you want me to build you a set for your compound, whatever you want, that's what I'm going to build you and send you. And so I'm excited about this giveaway. The link for the giveaway is in the description. Absolutely no purchase necessary. Just click that link and follow the instructions. Basically, we're going to ask you to like Nick's page, Powder and String, Bear Archery, and subscribe to the podcast. So go get entered to win that. I wanted to talk briefly. I have oftentimes said, and guys, I'm not going to hide this from anybody. Like I carry, interchangeable cheap knives because I want to break them and, do whatever with them. These are also, when I told somebody one time, they said, what's the best way to strip arrows? And I said, I use a knife with an interchangeable blade. That way when it gets gunked up with glue, I don't have to try to scrub a sharp blade with glue on it. I can just throw that blade away and get another one.
Yeah.
So I know the value in these. Like I see the value in that.
Do you use you don't have a vein stripper?
No, I don't.
Dude, those are sweet.
I know.
They work so well.
I've used them, but basically my arrow stripping comes down to I scrape them with a blade, and then once that blade gets gunked up and it stops scraping it well, I take it out and I'll soak it in fingernail polish remover.
Yeah.
And it'll pull all that off, and I just wipe it off, and then but I can keep going while it's doing that with another blade.
I used to do that when I worked at the bow shop. Do a quick vein strip, and then we had a 1 gallon paint can, empty paint can with a hole, and filled with acetone.
Yep. Stick it down in there.
We'd soak them in acetone overnight, and then just wipe them with a rag, and you're good to go.
But what I wanted to say was, I get this question about all gear, whether it's bows, boots, packs, bino packs, anything. Even clothing. Like, I'll get that question of, if you only are going to buy one, what would you buy?
Yeah.
Which is, for a lot of things, is a loaded question. But I get that. I get, when I talk about my boot system, you're not going to go out and buy 5 pairs of boots because it costs $380, $500. I mean, depending on the boot. So I get guys want 1 pair of boots. And so when I get that question about knives, if you can only buy 1 knife, if you had to choose 1 knife, it's not going to be this, because this isn't well built. It's not dependable. I mean, a screw could come loose. It could break in the field. I mean, a lot of things can happen. So if I'm only going to buy one knife and carry one knife, I'm going to have a good hand-forged knife that I know is going to last. I know it's going to stay sharp. I know that I can beat it up and sling it through the mud, and it's still going to be there. You know what I mean?
Yeah. The full tang fixed blade knives are just as durable as they can be.
Well, I've even started carrying. You made a everyday carry knife, and I've even started carrying that rather than a fold up pocket knife, just because 3 years ago I would have never dreamed of that. I'm like, I want it to fit small in my pocket, and which is exactly what you made. But what I found is that knife, it stays sharper a whole lot longer because it's not some factory built folding knife that, you know what I mean? And so it's just a lot more dependable. It's a lot more sturdy. It's solid in your hand.
Yeah.
The folding mechanisms don't wear out. The clips don't wear out. It's built. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah, I think one of the things that's most notable for me as an artist, we were talking about the artistry side of this whole thing, is just the ability for you as a customer to get something customized to you, to your needs, to look the way you want it, to perform the way you want it, to be exactly what you want, versus just a production item that's the same as the next guy's. A lot of the production knives perform well, but they look just like everybody else's.
Right.
There's no uniqueness. There's no customized features that make it
for
yours. And that's what sets custom knives apart. And what I really enjoy about making custom knives is the fact that that knife is the only knife on the planet that looks like that.
Yeah.
Now, there may be one out there somewhere in the world that's similar, but it's not exactly the same. And
even if you were to rebuild this knife.
Right. Even if I wanted to duplicate that, like if somebody that's entered in this giveaway doesn't win and they say, that's so cool, I want one, I want to order that exact same thing. If I went to make it the exact same, it'll be different.
Yeah.
It will not be the same as that.
Right.
There's just no way for
there
me
will
to
be
make
different
it
characteristics in the leather and in the wood that's used and
Yep.
in the steel. And 100%.
Yeah, so that's one of the things that's just so cool to me is that every one of these knives that I make is unique in its own way, and there will never be another one like it.
Yeah.
It's just cool. And some people get that, and that is exciting to them, it's attractive to them, and that's what they want. Other people want to go get the $50 one at Walmart and use that, and that's fine. I'm like, it's your choice as a consumer, as a customer, to use what you want to use. And for the people that choose Nick's Knifeworks, that's just so cool because there's a lot of great makers out there. There's a ton of great bladesmiths that are all making great products. And when somebody orders one from me, when they choose me over the next guy, that means a lot to me. And I take that very seriously.
Well, to me, the biggest deal is like, if I want to look for a knife for a specific purpose, say the side of my binocular harness, which is a great example. If I want a knife that's going to fit exactly on the side of my binocular harness right where I want it to go, then basically what I'm going to have to do is I'm going to have to take that binocular harness to Cabela's and start picking up all their knives, all the folding knives, all the fixed blade knives, and literally put them in there and see if they fit. And chances are I'm probably not going to find a perfect one. I mean, I'm going to find one that works, but I'm not going to find the perfect one. Whereas, when this new binocular harness came out from Alaskan Guy Creations that I wanted to use, I just sent you measurements. And I'm like, Nick, this is the side of my harness. This is what it looks like. This is how it's going to attach. This is how long it is. This is how wide it is. And you built me a knife. And I specifically said I want it lightweight. I want it. And, dude, no matter what I'm doing, like, if I'm out shooting, if I'm out hanging stands, if I'm out on an elk hunt or a deer hunt, that knife is right there.
Yeah.
And I can grab it quick and easy. It fits right there. It's easy to take in and out. It's right exactly what I want.
Mm-hmm.
And so, like, that has been the most useful thing to have right there.
you would probably crap your pants to know how to treat that knife. But
I love it. That's what they're made for.
I've pried so many broadheads out of trees and stuff using that knife.
No, that's great. I treat my knives harder than anybody should because I need to know what they can take.
Yeah.
I need to make sure that they're going to hold up to anything anybody's going to try and do with it. So I push mine, my personal knives, I push them hard so that when somebody like you wants to use it and actually use it, it's going to do what it's supposed to do. I know for a fact there's a pretty sizable percentage of knives that I've made
that don't get used,
that are in a drawer or in a safe, because people are scared to use them because they're really pretty and they don't want to mess them up.
Yeah, that's
okay too. But I don't necessarily make them to look at.
Right.
They're made to work. They're made to use.
Yeah, and that's what I love about them, because I have had knives where I'm like, it's so pretty and so expensive, and if I break it or bend it or crap,
Mm-hmm.
But that's why your knives are built to last and built to work, because I can use it and I do use it. I have literally beat that thing to death. Just last year, on a deer hunt, the arrow went through the deer and stuck into the back of in a tree. And so I was digging the broadhead out of a tree with that knife, and then I immediately went to skinning the deer with that knife. And, some of the guys were like, dude, that's kind of too nice of a knife to treat it how you're treating it. And I'm like, but it's a knife. Like, this is a tool. Like,
right.
It is in fact, it's my, as a hunter, it's one of your biggest tools. Gotta have a knife.
Pretty invaluable tool to have.
So,
and me putting them to work in the field allows me to modify my designs, modify different, features in a knife to tailor it to certain tasks, certain needs. And so I test them pretty hard too. And one of the, and I'd like to get into this story later, but one of those things that I was able to figure out in the field last season was how important it was for me on my skinning knife for it to have a guard. As far as like the knife in the giveaway, those are awesome field knives for a lot of different purposes. But my dedicated skinning knife, for me personally, will always have a guard, and I'll tell you why. And this is what I mean by a guard. This is my everyday carry knife. It's a really small hidden tang knife. But this is a guard right here.
Right.
That brass guard. And the reason why that's so valuable to me on a skinning knife now is because when I was caping out my buck, it was really, really cold.
A tanker of a buck, by the way.
It was a stud, yeah.
I was pissed because I missed a deer that same morning.
It was a great day, but it was a cold day. And wind was blowing. Wind chill was, I don't know, 20.
It was cold.
It was cold.
I was mad because I found out from somebody else. I didn't find out from you.
Yeah. There was a lot of things going on that day.
Our friend Aaron Zishi, he texted me and said, Nick just shot a stud. And I'm like, well, he didn't tell me.
Yeah.
So that feels good.
Sorry. There was a lot of things happening all at the same time that morning. But anyway, back to when I was breaking that buck down, caping him out and doing what I needed to do, I couldn't feel my fingers.
Yeah.
And I had a couple different knives with me. I was testing different things. And that guard on that particular knife I was favoring was so valuable because I could not feel my fingers. And to make sure that my hand didn't come forward to the cutting edge when you can't feel your fingers, that was a game changer. To be able to push into that guard and know that whatever you're doing, that you weren't going to slip. Because your hands get slippery. You got all that fat, blood, and all those things. Anybody who's caped out a buck knows that their hands get slippery.
Yeah.
Especially the fat. And that guard was just awesome. So I've been working hard over the last year at getting better at making hidden tang knives. Because prior to that, I had been mostly making full tang knives. And now I'm getting way better at doing hidden tang knives with guards because that's a valuable design to me, and I want to be good at it. So I've been doing more and more of those for guys that want to have a hidden tang with a guard. But as far as durability, if I was going to take that knife and throw it as hard as I can into a brick wall.
I'm going to do it right now.
Not that one because it's the giveaway. It's the giveaway knife. But if I had another fixed blade, full tang, we could throw it at that wall as hard as we can, and nothing's going to happen.
Yeah.
This knife.
Oh, it'll happen. It'll mess my wall up.
Yeah. But this knife, hidden tang, with a guard, is a little bit more likely for the handle portion to break. Not the blade. The blade's going to be fine. But if I was to throw that knife at that wall as hard as I can, there's a chance that the wood will fail. That's a really durable hardwood. That's Bacote. But still, there's a chance for failure. Hidden tang knives are inherently lighter weight, a little bit more delicate as far as if you're going to push it to the max, a hidden tang knife is a little bit more prone to fail than a full tang knife. But for delicate precision cutting, like caping out a buck or doing something like that, I prefer the hidden tang style with a guard.
Yeah.
So there's pros and cons. You were talking about if I'm going to have one knife to do it all.
That's what I was going to go back to.
There's pros and cons to different designs,
So you keep
blade
mentioning
shapes.
My skinning knife, my everyday carry. If guys are like, I want to invest in one really good knife, what design, shape, would you recommend? If somebody were to call you and say, man, I want to invest in a really good knife, but I can only afford one, so I can't have one for my binocular harness and one for skinning out when I'm done.
Yeah.
I can't have that. So if they just want one knife, what are you going to recommend to them?
Yeah, so I have different model names to certain designs that I want to be able to repeat. And one of those models is the Coyote. That's my Coyote model. It usually lands, like I said, they're all different, but usually it lands somewhere around 7 inches to 7 1/8 overall. The total length of the knife's usually just over 7 inches with a cutting edge around 2
For comparison,
3/4.
how long is this one?
That one is, I believe that's an 8-inch overall with was it 3-inch cutting edge?
8-inch, exactly.
And the Coyote is a 7 1/8, and a 2 3/4 cutting edge. So it's a little bit smaller than that one. And it's, to me, the perfect size to be able to daily carry if you so choose. But it's big enough that you can do a lot of things in the field.
Right.
Yeah, the larger knives, and I wouldn't consider this a large knife, but the bigger knives that I make are hard to carry daily. They're great for in the field, but it's not an easy thing to carry every day. The smaller knives are just a lot easier to use more frequently because they're easier to carry. So anyway, the Coyote model, I like the size and shape because I feel like it's very versatile to both carry and to do a lot of things well in the field. And if you want to check out my website or Facebook or Instagram, you can chances are you're going to come across a picture of a Coyote pretty fast because I sell a lot of those. I sell a lot of them that look a lot like that too. That's just a tiny bit bigger.
The Coyote, that's your one and done. If you have to choose one knife, that is the one. Now, based off what you described, that's pretty similar to my binocular harness knife.
As far as size?
Yeah.
Yeah, yours might be a 1/2 inch bigger, but it's close.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And like I said, man, I use that knife for everything. I don't every day carry it, but I might as well because I wear my binocular harness just about everywhere. I've often said, like, my binocular harness is probably my most used. Like,
Sure.
more than my bow, more than anything, because if I'm outdoors, I'm wearing it.
Yeah.
And that's part of the reason why is because I've got tools right there that I can use. I mean, if I'm out, hanging stands and I see a deer way off, I don't want to be like, oh, dude, was that a buck? I want to pull my binos out and see.
Yeah.
if I'm, oh crap, dude, I got to cut this strap. I got to go back to the truck and find a knife.
Sure.
Nope, it's right on my chest.
Yeah.
So I use that binoculars probably 5 times a week. I'm wearing it. So that knife almost is an everyday carry. So.
Yeah. That's great.
I got to jump back, dude, because I haven't even got to hear the story of this buck yet.
I know. I haven't told you. I've been saving it.
I don't want to get off track, but I got to hear the story of this deer.
Yeah, it's this last season was one to remember for me in a lot of ways.
Before we get into the deer, though, because last time you were on the show, it was probably about a year ago.
Yeah.
Roughly. I mean, I could go back and look, but and you talked about your journey into traditional archery and shooting a longbow.
Yeah.
And at that time, you had not harvested a deer, right?
I had killed does. I had not harvested
a buck.
Correct.
But you had worked your tail off at it. Like, it wasn't for lack of trying.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. So there was
How many years did this take?
Oh man, that's a great question. See, I'm 30 right now.
This is old man math now.
My journey into traditional archery started when I was, probably 14 or 15. Okay. Probably 15. But it was I'd say probably the first 5 years of the last, 15-year traditional journey. The first 5, I dabbled. Dabbled in it. I would use it for fun, practicing in the yard, stump shooting. I did try and turkey hunt with it, but that was about it. And then I did a ton of bow fishing with a traditional bow. And that was a blast. Loved every minute of that for a long time. But when I really got serious about traditional archery would have been in 2015, maybe, I think was the year in which I was committed, like really committed. I think that was the year
You sold compounds.
Yeah, I worked at an archery shop. My life was ate up with all things archery. Yeah. So I did both traditional and compounds for a number of years, but I got to a point in which I switched permanently. I think 2015, I was still shooting both. I did harvest my first doe, I think it was 2015, with a longbow. And then I killed a buck in 2016 with a compound. And that was the last shot I ever took with a compound bow.
Even still, like, you don't shoot them for fun at all.
No, nothing. No.
Wow.
I that buck that I harvested in 2016.
Now I know what's wrong with you.
I think that was the last shot I've ever taken with a compound. And that was largely due because my wife was expecting a child in early November of 2016, and I knew my season was going to be really short.
Yeah.
And
I had a kid born early November in 2016.
Yeah, did you?
The 7th.
Nice. My daughter ended up being born the day after Thanksgiving.
Which, if I had, what sucked is I had always said up to that point, and I had said it on numerous podcasts, if I had to pick one day to hunt, one single day, you say, Dylan, this is the day you got to go. I'm going November 7th. And then sure enough, my kid was born on November 7th, and I'm sitting there, dude, and I probably got 10 pictures, because we were there for a couple days. She had jaundice, so that we were there for 2 or 3 days. And in those 2 or 3 days, I probably got 10 giants on my phone of my buddies. Like, dude just shot this banger of a deer. And I'm like, yeah, screw you, dude.
Yeah.
I'm sitting in the hospital.
Yeah, it definitely can throw a wrench into your plans, when you're
Well, then
having
my
kids
son
and
was
stuff.
born. I couldn't figure out how this was working. I couldn't figure out why this was happening. My son was born September 2nd. And so, like last year, I was on an elk hunt for his birthday. This year, I'll be on a velvet deer hunt in Kentucky. And so my wife's like, are you ever going to be home on his birthday? I'm like, probably not.
Yeah.
I'm like, but that also means every year for his birthday, when he's older, we'll be on a dope hunt.
Yeah. Yeah. I the whole family planning thing, I didn't do the greatest with either. Yeah, I've got a birthday in September, November. The twin boys' birthdays is December 4th. Which historically is opener for rifle.
But who cares about that, right?
Well, so
wait a second. So you don't hunt with a compound, but you hunt with a rifle?
No, I don't.
Oh, okay.
I have a good friend of mine that I take every opener
Gotcha.
for rifle. I've been getting him in. He's an adult onset hunter.
Yeah.
And been taking him out. We do a rifle hunt together. But here in a few years, my
Your
boys
boys,
will potentially get birthday bucks,
Yeah.
which would be awesome.
Awesome.
What a great way to spend a birthday as a youth, you know. But that I feel like that'll be a very short window, and then they'll switch to archery when they get old enough to handle a bow. But it's up to them. I'm not gonna push them, to become a traditional archer.
But if they don't shoot archery, they're gonna have to find somewhere else to live. I mean,
well, here's the deal. If my boys end up to be anything like me, they're gonna want to do what Dad's doing.
They're gonna have a dope beard.
Well, maybe not at that age, but eventually, hopefully. But they're gonna want to do what Dad's doing. If Dad's out in the yard shooting a bow, they're gonna want to be out with Dad shooting a bow.
Right.
So it's one of those things that I anticipate happening. But if they're not into it, or if they just aren't ethically, not good enough to be ethical shots, they'll stick with a rifle until they're ready. Or if they just don't have the desire to be bow hunters, I'm not going to make them do it. They can shoot a deer with a rifle, and I'm not going to be mad about it.
As long as it ain't a crossbow.
Yeah, that would be different. I would be a little disappointed if that's the route they took. But
now listen, for everybody who just heard me say that, I'm joking. Partly.
Well, you can joke. I'm not joking.
I'm joking partly. If somebody is able to shoot a vertical bow and they choose a crossbow, that's where I have issues.
Sure.
If somebody's able, willing and able. Now, my father, who is like ancient, I can say that because he's never going to listen to this because he's ancient. He doesn't have a podcast device that he listens to. No, I'm just kidding. But, my dad was a hardcore wrestler growing up, so his shoulders are shot. So although he's still very healthy and very fit and can do just about anything, his shoulders are bad. And so he cannot pull a bow back anymore.
Yeah.
Unethical weight to harvest deer. He still shoots a recurve at 30 pounds, but he doesn't feel comfortable shooting deer with that. So I bought him a Barrett crossbow so he could, still be able to hunt.
Yeah.
But again, he paid his dues. You know what I mean? He grinded it out. He went 5 years without killing deer because he was trying to do it with a compound or a recurve. So he's been there, done that. And so now that he's not able, I'm perfectly fine with somebody shooting a crossbow. I'm even fine with kids doing it.
Yeah.
If they're now my 12-year-old, she can pull a bow back at 45 pounds. So we're going to teach you how to shoot a bow at 45 pounds, and you're not shooting one with a crossbow. You know what I mean?
Yeah, they definitely have their place, and I know that, and I respect that. For their intended audience, for people that need that option, I love it. It gets them outdoors. It gets them in the field. It keeps them doing what they love, and I think that's wonderful. I just the thing that I think bothered me the most when they became legal in Kansas for anybody
during archery season
is that a lot of your rifle guys, a lot of your gun guys just jumped into the crossbow game because their season went from being 10 days to 3 months.
Yeah.
And that's the only reason that they switched into the archery season was because
correct
they picked up a crossbow.
Now, I do have to. I mean, I got to tread lightly.
I know you do, and
because I do work for Pope and Young as well.
Yeah,
and everybody knows their stance on crossbows. But I am not okay with crossbows being in the regular archery seasons.
Yeah, that's how I feel.
Put them in a muzzleloader season.
Exactly.
Make their own season, like a muzzleloader season.
Yeah.
Put them in muzzleloader season or just in gun season. But for a crossbow that I can literally take out and be incredibly proficient at 100 yards in about 10 minutes, I don't think should be allowed in archery seasons.
Yeah, I would love to see things move in the direction of a dedicated season.
Yeah.
I think a dedicated season or coupling it in with other seasons, muzzleloader like you mentioned, I think that's a great option.
Right.
I really do.
Or regulations as far as I think my 80-year-old grandpa, well, I don't have any grandpas anymore. So if you've got an 80-year-old grandpa who's bow hunted his entire life, and again, now he can no longer pull a bow back, I'm okay with him going out and shooting a crossbow during archery seasons.
Well, that's the way it used to be.
Because he has a special permit.
If you got a handicap permit.
Correct.
That's the way it was.
Right.
And that's great. So I totally respect that. But yeah, I think a dedicated season would be ideal.
Well, and here's my rant. For the thugs out there that are crossbows are Satan, and if you shoot a crossbow, you're dying and going to hell. Like there are a lot of people that take that stance. So you mean to tell me that the guy that just got back from fighting for our country and lost a limb shouldn't be able to bow hunt anymore because he fought for our country so that you can continue to hunt? He was over there laying his life down so you could continue to hunt. But now when he gets back, we say you can't use that weapon. That's unethical to you. That's cheating to use that. Really?
Yeah, that's why I've always held the opinion that I understand their place.
Yeah.
In the world, I appreciate crossbows for their place.
Yeah.
Opening it up to everybody is a little different, but if there's any, like if I took 30,000 foot view of this whole topic, if there was one thing that I would advocate for is just getting people outside. That is the benefit. I wish that some of the regulations would change a little bit as far as accessibility or the 3 months that they get to do it with a crossbow. But if it gets a new hunter out in the woods, that is a win.
Yeah,
that's a wonderful thing.
Or a seasoned hunter who no longer can do it. But, and let me take a step back because I do want to clarify. I don't think I've ever said publicly on this podcast. Pope and Young's stance on crossbows will never change. But it has loosened up. And what I mean by that is, for those of you, I get these questions about, like I posted about the digital react not so long ago, and somebody immediately was like, is that accepted in Pope and Young? So I get these kind of questions a lot, so I'll just clarify this up. Pope and Young views crossbows as a different weapon, just like we view rifles. You can't put a rifle kill in Pope and Young because it's a vertical bow record book.
Yeah.
So Pope and Young views crossbows as a different weapon. We view them as a crossbow, not a vertical bow, not archery equipment, a crossbow.
Yeah.
And
I feel like that's how it should be.
It is. And so crossbows, they have their own record books. It's called Bolt and Coral. So Pope and Young's stance is that if you shoot a deer with a crossbow, by all means, enter that in Bolt and Coral. This just isn't the record book for crossbows.
I'd never heard of that. Say that one more time. Bolt
and Coral.
Spell that.
I wish I could.
Is it with a C?
I think it's a Q.
Q. I've never heard of that. That's interesting. I didn't know that. But
now,
that's great. That's cool.
So Pope and Young measures can actually measure for Bolt and Coral if they so choose. So if somebody were to call a Pope and Young measure and say, I just shot this deer, I'd like to get it measured, and then they say, I shot it with a crossbow, they would then say, well, we can't enter it into Pope and Young, but I can measure it for Bolt and Coral if you would like to put it in that record book and or Boone and Crockett.
Yeah.
It is with a Q. Quarrel. Bolt and Coral.
What an interesting choice to name that.
Is an organization committed to reestablishing. Now I've got a problem because instead of committed to TO, they put committed TWO is in the number 2. Committed to reestablishing the decades-old tradition of crossbow hunting.
But why would they use the word quarrel?
Some, just like Pope and Young, I'm sure. One of the guys that helped patent.
Oh, you think it's somebody's name?
Oh yeah, I'm sure.
Oh. Well, the word quarrel means to fight.
Yeah.
So that's just a weird word to me to put on that.
That would be my guess. I mean, just like Pope and Young or Boone and Crockett, they're all after names.
Okay. Well, that makes more sense then.
I could be completely wrong. I'm trying to find like a about section on their website, but there doesn't seem to be one. So,
well, I mean, I'm glad that Pope and Young has held that stance. I feel like that's the right stance to take, and I'm proud of them for sticking to it.
Yeah, I feel the same way. As an archery hunter, if I'm walking into my stand and I've got a recurve, and you are walking to your stand as a willing, able-bodied 30-year-old guy, same age, same, nothing physically wrong with you, and you're walking in with a crossbow, I'm going to be thinking, well, the odds aren't in my favor. I mean, because if we're hunting together and a deer walks out at 120, you're going to say, and shoot that deer.
Well, I don't know about that far.
Whereas with a recurve, dude, you haven't even started hunting that deer yet. Like you're still a long ways from that deer. And so that's my only issue with it.
Guys, I don't need to tell you about the Blazer Vane. You're probably familiar with the Blazer Vane, and you're probably familiar with Boning. Boning has been around forever. It's a name you can trust. They sell products you can trust. They have everything that you need to build your own arrows. All of the jigs to fletch your own arrows, all of the vanes, all of the wraps, numerous types of vanes and wraps to build any kind of configuration you want. They also have some really cool Fredbear branded products with their Fredbear camo wraps and their Fredbear flannel wraps. Something that's really cool about that Fredbear flannel, that's actually a photo that was taken of one of Fredbear's flannel famous shirts, the red and gray and black that he always wore. That's actually a photo taken of his personal shirt and put on a wrap. It looks really cool, especially on some traditional arrows. But my very favorite configuration, and this is coming from an arrow junkie that's tried out all different kind of vanes and all different kind of configurations. I have found that this configuration stabilizes pretty much every arrow. It's whisper quiet. They fly fantastic. The 3-inch Bronco vane in a 4-fletch absolutely flies like a dart, whether you're shooting mechanicals or big fixed. This is going to be a fletching configuration that will work. Again, whisper quiet, long range accuracy. I love this configuration. This is on every single one of my compound arrows. They just work. Guys, I would highly encourage you to check out Boning, not just for the Blazer vane, but for the Heat vane, for the Broncos, for the X vanes. Everything that you need to build your own arrows is right there on Boning's website. They've been around for ages, and I promise you, if you order from them, you're going to get products that you can trust.
Yeah, so one thing about traditional bow hunting is that it's a self-imposed limitation that we put on ourselves. There are easier ways to hunt. There are easier ways to fill tags, and I think most people that are attracted to traditional equipment understand that they're making it more challenging because of the reward that they get when it works out.
Well, and for whatever reason you choose to put that limitation on yourself. I mean, whether it be, man, I want to hunt more. And if I have a compound, I'm going to shoot that deer when it's at 40.
Right.
And my season's over. So for whatever reason you choose to put that limitation on yourself, so be it. And if you choose not to, so be it.
Yeah. Yeah, so, there is a lot of argument to be made for, well, if you don't want to shoot a deer at 100 yards with a crossbow, then don't use a crossbow. Oh, that's exactly what I'm doing. That's the choice that I've made, is to make that hunt more difficult for myself by the way in which I enjoy doing it.
Yeah.
And part of that was the fact that I hadn't killed a buck for a long time. I went from 2016 to 2022 of a dry spell of not harvesting anything with antlers on its head. I had shot a number of does in that window, but never killed a buck.
In that time, I'm sure you were passing decent deer.
Well, I had missed the year before.
We don't have to talk about those.
I lose sleep. I lose sleep at night about the tank that I missed on November the 13th, 2020. I mean, I missed an inch high over his back, and it was just, it crushed me. But I had in earlier that same season, I missed a little basket 8, an inch low. I like during that dry spell, there were a number of years where I never drew the bow back, but there was other seasons like 2020 that I missed twice in the same season, and I mean that's part of the deal.
There's two types of people in this world. There's the type of people that's going to say, "This freaking sucks. I'm going back to the compound."
Well, I'm too stubborn. I'm too
That's
stubborn
me.
for that.
So the same day you shot your deer, I shot right over the back of a giant, and I was just
With your compound?
No, my recurve.
Oh, okay.
And I was like, screw this, dude. And so the next morning I go out with my compound and I plug a deer at 30 yards, and I'm like,
how did it make you feel when you did that?
well, I shot a stinking like a 14-inch deer.
No,
so-
I mean not the deer. The act of doing it with your compound.
like a quitter.
Did it change the experience for you?
Yeah, 100%. Yeah. Deer are never the same with a compound ever.
Yeah.
But the same, like, I went on a bear hunt this year, and this played out to be everything you could ever hope for in a hunt. Public ground in the mountains of Idaho, and here comes a big old chocolate bear, and I'm like, oh my gosh, yes. He's at 13 yards.
Do you get it? Do you get bear fever like you do buck fever?
More so.
Really?
I do, yeah, more so.
Because I fall apart. That's part of why I miss, is because I can't handle the adrenaline.
That's part of why I like bear hunting. I just have, I don't know, I have this like little addiction to bears, and I just love it. Like if you were to say right now you could go on any hunt in the world,
Really?
elk,
You'd pick bear?
moose, caribou, doesn't matter. I'm gonna go on a coastal brown bear hunt in Alaska,
Is that right?
100%. But I have this like bear
Yeah.
addiction. So this
I've never
played
done
out
it.
literally. Well, they're perfect for recurves, so you should do it. This played out perfectly. I mean, came to 13 yards, and I'm like, dude, like at this point, I'm already getting excited because I'm like, I'm about to kill a bear in the mountains of Idaho, big old chocolate brown, with my recurve. And so I draw back, and what sucked the most is I made a perfect shot, but I shot in the wrong place. Like
You were just looking at the wrong spot?
No, I overcompensated. I hit right exactly where I wanted to hit. I just overcompensated for the angle, and so I shot high.
Because when you bear hunt, you sit really high, right?
I was only like 12 yards, or 12 feet high.
Okay.
I was only like 12 feet high, but I just overcompensated, and I just thought I don't know why, and so I shot high, thinking it would come out perfect, and it came out good. Like I was like, okay, I definitely hit top of back lungs at least. Saw the bear run, saw him stop, and I'm like, he's about to die right there. Like this is, like I thought there's no way this bear's living, just based off the way he was acting. And so I was listening real close. If you never bear hunted, they let out a death moan. That last bit of breath is just like this eerie moan.
Yeah.
One of the coolest things to ever hear in the woods, but it's also like one of the most bone-chilling things to ever hear in the
Sure.
woods. And so I'm like waiting to hear that, and I never do. And so I, radio phone to the camp, and I'm like, just shot a bear, and like we'll be there in a minute. I'm like, cool. So here they come. We find my arrow. It's got decent blood. I mean, it's good blood. Arrow's covered in blood, but the bear didn't bleed good, which they're notorious for. I think it's so much hair. It's going to
What
soak
kind
up
of
the
broadhead
blood.
did you have on?
Cutthroat. The old 125 single bevel cutthroats. But
Did you get it full pass through?
yeah, oh yeah. It just, and so not only is it a bear that bleeds bad, but it's a high hit that bleed bad. Because they've got so much muscle and so much, bone tissue and not bone tissue, so much muscle tissue to cover up holes and
A lot of fat
reseal.
too.
So it didn't bleed good, and so we're finding little specks of blood. But I was in my mind, I'm like, as soon as we get up to where he paused, we're going to find a big old pool of blood, and we'll be in the money. You know what I mean? Because he stopped for 30 seconds. And we get up there, and it's not a drop. Now, again, we're in the mountains of Idaho, so there's a lot of deadfall.
Sure.
So I'm like, he could have been standing, on this side of it, underneath it, around it. And so what sucks is I still think that bear's probably dead, but it was a needle in a haystack because we didn't have a blood trail to follow. We didn't have.
Down.
I literally could have stepped over that bear, walking on deadfall, and not seen him underneath me. I mean, he could have easily buried underneath deadfall, and I could have walked right over it. But I had already texted my dad, and I'm like, dude, just shot a bear with my recurve, bro. Dream come true. I'd already texted my wife and said, oh my gosh, just shot a bird with my recurve. And so we let it sleep. We go back to camp, and we never found it.
Do they track animals with dogs up there?
We had a dog, not necessarily a blood dog, more of a dead dog. In other words, it'll smell death and find it.
Okay.
But no, it didn't.
Well, I've been in some nasty blowdowns in the mountains before, and I can picture the scene in which you're talking about.
This is the hunt you were supposed to come on with me.
Yeah, I remember it
we
well.
had a lot of fun.
I remember it well.
You didn't miss any elk, I'll tell you that.
It came down to a cost thing for that, but one of these days we'll do it.
Yeah, with Zishi.
Yeah, it'd be fun. Yeah, those blowdowns can be, man, they can be brutal.
Yeah. I feel like you hardcore judged me just now by feeling the edge of that broadhead.
It's really dull.
This is not the one I shot the bear with.
Yeah,
it's not the one I shot the bear with.
You must have put that in the ground a few times.
There's a whole pile of broadheads in here, so there's no telling. Some are sharp, some aren't.
I mean, every quiver has to have at least one dull broadhead in it. One crap broadhead that you can shoot armadillos with or whatever.
I carry judo points for that. I don't ever shoot my broadheads in the ground.
Really?
Nope.
I do. I have a bad broadhead in every quiver. They are the Simmons tree sharks. It's a big, wide, contoured.
For shooting trees?
No, it's just the model name.
Oh.
But it's a Simmons 165. I think I shoot the 165 Simmons broadhead. And I'll tell you one thing: that contoured cutting edge it's challenging to get it sharp.
Yeah.
Straight edged, like those
VPAs
are way easier to get shaven sharp.
I'll tell you exactly what I'm going to be shooting is the new Bear razor heads.
Yeah.
Interchangeable weight system. So
those are slick.
You can highly tune your bow with them. They go from, if you're shooting a glue-on, 150, screwing in 175, 200, 250. So you can really tune your arrows with them. So that's what I'll be shooting this year. They're already in my quiver. They fly like darts, and so I'm excited to try those out. But back to the deer, man. We've gotten off on like 84 rabbit trails.
That happens, though. But yeah, I had a really special season last year. It started with a hunt in September. This was towards the end of September. And the buck that I ended up killing later in the season, I almost killed at the end of September. It was a very early season hunt, very warm, doe patrol type of hunt. And if a buck is going to make an appearance, it's the last minute of daylight. And this property that I hunt is one of those properties that you can burn it out. You can overpressure it fairly easily. And so early season, I typically hunt the fringe. I don't get into the property very far, very fast. So I was on the edge in a transition between cover and food. And the last 5 minutes of light, I was watching some does that were fairly far off, maybe 80, 100 yards off. And it's getting hazy dark, like pretty dark. And all of a sudden that buck was right there. And there was a window in which I could have taken a shot that day, but it was a couple minutes too dark. I just could not confidently take that shot with the amount of daylight that I had. And so it was a really awesome hunt.
See, but that's a limitation that I think recurves take away. Like, because even if legal shooting light ends at 6:35, given a compound setup, might not be able to see your pins at 7:30. You know what I mean? So you might only have 25 minutes past dark to shoot a compound. But with a recurve, you can shoot it right up to that last minute.
Yeah, you can. I mean, depending on the ability of your eyes, right? But
I've actually found I shoot better in the dark.
Well, there is something to be said for being able to focus and not get distracted by the massive headgear. Like, for me,
not only that, if it's light, I start overthinking. Whereas if it's dark, I just instinctively hold where I need to hold, rather than the tip of my arrow looks too high or too low. And so, like,
Yeah.
Dude, I'll go out in the backyard and pitch black, like dark, 10 p.m., and shoot at 20 yards at my deer, and I'm just drilling in a dead spot every time just because.
Yeah, I've done it too.
There's
it's
no
fun.
overthinking it. It's just I'm instinctively shooting where I want to hit. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's easier to focus on the target than all the other things. But in this particular situation, I did not take that shot.
Kudos to you.
And I instantly regretted it, of course, later, because I had time to think about it.
How big was this deer?
Well, so it was dark enough that I couldn't tell you exactly which buck it was, but I knew that it was a really good buck. And funny thing, the morning, way later in the season, the morning that I killed this same buck, was similar, except it was a morning hunt instead of evening. When he was approaching me, and I was deep in the timber this time, not on the edge. When he was approaching, for the whole 100-yard of visibility that I had of him coming down this trail, it was too dark for me to see which buck it was. I just knew by the mass and the size of the gray shadows over his ears that it was a really good buck, but I couldn't see how good until he was in my lap. Once he was in my lap, I knew I was freaking out, like adrenaline, buck fever, like I was losing my stuff. And I was at one point I was in, and this is also the first kill out of a saddle.
Oh, gross. You're a tree diaper guy?
I am now.
Oh my god.
We can talk more about that later.
No,
I don't want to lose the rabbit hole off of this story, but I'm in my saddle, and at one point I was drawn back, and there was a little sapling in the way, and I didn't take that shot. Let back down. He took a couple more steps, but this time he quartered away a little bit harder than I would have preferred. And I almost didn't take that shot. Oh. But I made the executive decision that it's now or never. Like, this is my opportunity. Even though he was quartered a little bit harder than I would have preferred. And I drew back and made my shot. And this was 25-yard shot. Because he was working away at this point. And so 25-yard shot, and he took off up a steep ridge. I mean, where I'm hunting is in a really good pinch point between the termination of a massive ridge and a river. And it pinches down really, really hard right there. So if the deer move through, they're going to pinch down into a 50-yard wide area.
Right.
It's a super sweet spot. However, the wind swirls in there really, really bad coming off that ridge.
You can send me the GPS coordinates that if you'd like.
Okay. But the wind swirls down in there really bad coming down that ridge. And so it's one of those spots that can be a little tricky. But when it works, it's good. But anyway, after the shot,
hunt high with rising thermals.
He was headed up this steep ridge. And when I say steep, I mean, I'm in Kansas. We're in Kansas. So when you get a steep ridge, like, it's not the norm. But this is a steep ridge. And he's headed straight up it. And I knew in the back of my mind, if he makes it to the top, because it plateaus out for a long ways up there. If he makes it to the top, I'm going to have a long day.
Yeah.
And he made it about halfway up that ridge and fell and rolled all the way back down to the bottom.
Oh, that's cool.
When he fell over on that ridge, dude, I thought I was going to have a heart attack. Like, we're talking...
Did you pee a little bit?
I cried. Like,
good.
Like tears were flying out of my face. I lost my stuff because I don't know how many years this would have been.
2015,
yeah.
2022.
Okay, so I had 7 years of emotion.
Yeah.
Like,
for sure,
building up to this moment in time, and it all happened really fast.
Now this deer's a tanker. Like, this is not. a Forky.
Yeah, it's a really good buck. It's my biggest buck. And
What did the deer score?
I couldn't tell you. I don't know. Although funny
Rough
enough, Josh Burden with Muddy River Taxidermy texted me yesterday that it's ready. So my shoulder mount's ready to be picked up.
So that's what you're going after here, huh?
Well, I tried to time it out that way, but he's not going to get home today till 4:30.
We can shoot bows for a couple hours.
I don't know if I'm going to hang out that long, but
oh wow, he's like, dude, I'm not staying at your house that long.
that's not what
He's
I
like,
meant.
bro, I got to get out of here.
That's not what I meant, but he's ready to be picked up, and I'm super stoked because my wife and kids haven't even seen him, other than the picture. But it's a stud of a deer, and it all happened really quick. And when it did happen, the emotions that came out from inside of me are something that I can never explain. And I hung in my tree saddle and just cried. I texted my wife and I told her, and I was just overwhelmed with emotion.
I call my dad before I even text my wife. Like,
well, I would, but my dad passed away a number of years ago, so I don't have that.
So he already knew about it.
He's probably watching.
Yeah,
and I probably would be shaking his head about how many years it took me to do that, but because that generation, that's all they knew.
Yeah,
they killed
you
deer.
You didn't eat.
Well, I mean traditional bows.
Oh yeah,
that's all they knew,
yeah.
And they were very successful.
Yeah,
and then they all, when compounds came out, they all jumped on that bandwagon. Which, if I was alive then, I probably would have too. But
well, that's
anyway,
what I love about this whole new era of hunting. 90-pound compounds with a 700-grain arrow. I'm like, do you know how many deer were shot with a 40-pound recurve? Like,
yeah, and a 300-grain arrow.
Like, blowing through deer, elk. I mean, like, Fred Eichler shoots everything in North America with a 43-pound recurve. But these guys have in their mind that they have to have an 80-pound compound. Like,
yeah.
Why?
And I was there. Like, in 2013, 2014,
you went the complete. Like,
I had an 80-pound Elite Energy 35. I shot 80-pound compound, and I was ate up in all things compound.
Listen.
Latest and greatest of everything.
Listen, this is the Bear Archery Podcast.
Oh, should I not have said that?
No, because I might say something else. This is the Bear Archery Podcast. But the Energy 35 was one of my favorite shooting bows.
It is.
That's a sweet shooting rig,
I sold the fire out of those bows.
That was
the
an
archery shop.
Amazing shooting bow.
Yeah.
I had one in snow camo. It was awesome.
I can't remember mine. I ended up I hydro dipped mine in a Kuyu pattern, not the Verde, the other one, the brown and tan old
Vios.
school. Yeah, Vios, that's it. I dipped it in the Kuyu Vios. But yeah, I had 80-pound compound to hunt with. I had a giant, whatever Energy's target bow was. I was on the 3D scene, like, with all the stuff.
So you literally went from one end of the spectrum to the complete other.
Yeah.
Like, Homeboy makes his own feathers out of turkeys that he killed. Like,
right. Yeah, I did. How
do you do that, by the
total
way?
180. Make feathers?
Yeah, out of turkey feathers.
Well, picking the right feathers is part of the battle, but when you get a good wing, a right wing or a left wing, if you're cutting left wing feathers, you split the quill.
Time out. I got a question this week about this very topic. Why left wing and why right wing feathers? Somebody just emailed me. So that broadhead that I just showed Nick is what is called a right bevel broadhead. This one's even worse. Is what's called a right bevel broadhead. In other words, the bevel is on the right side.
You've been pounding sandbars with that?
Yeah,
Jeez.
Absolutely. Actually, this broadhead I know for a fact I shot through my deer in Oklahoma this year, and it went into a rock pile on the other side of the deer.
It looks like it hit a rock pile.
So if you're shooting a right bevel broadhead, you want to shoot a right helical feather.
Yeah, and it has to do with the
feather.
rotation of the arrow.
So here, let me just paint this picture for you real quick. I actually just did a tip on this that hadn't come out on YouTube yet, but it'll be on Bear's YouTube soon. So your right wing feathers are going to cause that arrow to be spinning to the right as it flies through. So if you're shooting a right bevel broadhead, then when that hits, it's just going to continue to spin with that bevel. Whereas if you're shooting a right-winged feather with a left bevel, then when it hits, it has to start fighting with the bevel to go back the other way and start going to the left with the bevel of that broadhead. So whatever bevel you're shooting on broadhead, you just want to match that with the feather. That way nothing fights and it keeps spinning as it goes to the deer.
Yeah.
You don't want to take away from the energy.
Yeah, it has to do with the penetration. And my broadheads are double bevel.
Yeah.
Those Simmons broadheads I'm shooting are double.
Which
and
the razor head system does have a double bevel.
If you have a double bevel cutting edge, you don't have to worry about matching the wing per se, but there is something to be said for a right wing coming off the shelf of a right-handed bow,
well, not only
differently than a left wing coming off the shelf of the bow.
So if you were to get incredibly technical about this, which some guys do, Levi Morgan is one of them, and so he's the best shooter in the world. Technically, you want to put the same helical on your bow that your arrow is naturally spinning. So shoot a bear shaft and figure out that it spin to the left or to the right.
You'd have to do that with slow-mo camera, right?
Well, no. Put a Sharpie mark on the back of your arrow, and then just stand right in front of the target, shoot, and if it's to the left, then it went to the left. If it went to the right, it went to the right. Off your bow.
How do you know if it didn't go all the way around?
Well, that's why you stand close. It won't have time. It's just right off your bow.
I've bear shafted plenty of times, but I've never paid attention to the rotation.
Well, and to tell you the truth, like that's why I say I would never tell somebody they need to tune their bow that way or fletch their arrows that way.
Yeah, there's
You'll
a
never
lot,
shoot the difference,
especially with a trad bow. Like you're never gonna know.
Never gonna know. But
there's guys that float their shafts in water and find the.
I do that
balance point. Do you really?
Not for my recurve, but I do for my compound.
Yeah, you can go down the weeds pretty fast on that.
But
stuff.
dude, I'm anal about building arrows, and that's why like if somebody asks me like, "Hey, can you build my arrows?" and I'm like, "Yes, this is what I charge." Like, "Oh crap," and I'm like, "Yeah, but I'm not just cutting your arrows to the length and then throwing vanes on. Like, I'm squaring everything, I'm spin testing everything, I'm straightening on my spine line on my, you know what I mean?" So
yeah.
But the reason you would do that is that way, if your bow naturally wants to spin it to the left, you don't have to have that 0.0004 seconds of it's trying to spin left and my arrow's making it go right. Again, I'm never going to shoot the difference. You're never going to shoot the difference. Nobody's ever going to shoot the difference. But it's one of those things that, like, you know, I've heard it said, but why wouldn't I? Like, why wouldn't I want the best shooting arrow? Now, like you said, 9 times out of 10, a right-handed shooter is going to come off the shelf with a right spin. Your arrow spinning right. But given that one time that it doesn't, and that bow just happens to spin your arrows to the left helical.
Yeah. Yeah, we were talking earlier about the total 180 that I did from the archery industry that I was in to now. You know, I don't pay attention to any of that stuff anymore. Like, I tune my arrow to the bow
and then shoot
between arrow length, knock point, brace height.
Oh, 100%.
And I'm it. That's it.
Yeah, and that's what most guys do. That's what I do for my recurves. But arrows are my addiction, though. Like like knives for you, like that's me for arrows. So like these arrows, like they're just basic 4 fletch with a 3-inch trad vane for my recurve. But these were still all spin tested after they were cut, whether I cut from the front or back, depending on which side had a wobble in it. Each side was squared. Each side was, you know what I mean? So I still, but that's my addiction. Like,
sure.
I love coming out to the garage late at night and just tinkering with arrows. Hence why I built a arrow shop.
Yeah.
It's not even a bow shop. It's an arrow shop.
Yeah.
But no, I don't mess with anything like that anymore. Like since I've built this little dojo, the amount of people that have said, "Hey, can you put a peep sight in my bow?" And I'm like, "Nope, don't have a bow press. I just want to work on recurves. I'll build your recurve for you. Bring it over. We'll set it up. But I'm not going to mess with that kind of stuff. I just don't want to."
Yeah, and I have the ability and the knowledge to operate a bow shop in my knife shop. Like, I could do that, but I don't want to do that either.
Yeah.
I'm into, and I've thought about building strings, but I haven't even gone down that route. I'm perfectly fine with buying a good string maker's string. And
I actually want you to get into tabs. That's what I want you to do.
Oh, yeah? Leather tab?
Yeah.
I shoot a glove, but tabs would be
That's
pretty
what took
easy
you
to
7
make.
years.
No.
I'm just kidding. That was mean. That was a joke.
I
Gloves are
have
awesome.
I have shot with both, and I prefer a glove.
Yeah. No, that's fine.
But
What's funny is there's actually bows, and I don't know why, but there's bows I prefer gloves on. I don't.
Well, and there are bows that I have changed from 3-under to split, or vice versa, based on the performance of the bow.
Yeah.
Too. I mean, bows can be picky about the way they want to be shot, and sometimes that means I'm going to sell this bow to buy a different bow because it's not shooting the way I want to shoot it, or you modify your shot to the bow. And
that's why I like recurves. That is exactly why I like, because if you pick up a compound, anybody can tune any compound to shoot for them. Like you
sure.
I can take that little stinking Royale that's made for kids and I can tune it to myself and shoot it.
Yeah.
Whereas recurves, it's an art. Like
it is.
It takes time. It takes figuring out what you like, what your bow likes.
Yeah, and it can be the littlest thing too. Like
the littlest thing.
I had a bow one time. I can't remember. It was a touch knock low, and I messed with I messed with all kinds of stuff, and could not figure it out. And finally, I moved my string silencer, my fur puffball, like 2 inches, and that was all it needed. Was the string silencer.
I did a tip on that not so long ago too.
Yeah.
If you're going to put silencers on your bow, make sure they're perfectly spaced from top and bottom.
Yeah.
So if your top one's 4 inches from the limb tip, your bottom one needs to be 4 inches from the limb tip. Because it will cause your string to move forward faster on one side or the other, and you will get knock.
Yeah, and even then, I would tell people that that's a starting point.
Oh, yeah.
Like, if the bow's tiller is slightly off, moving that silencer a half inch one way may be the thing that you
changes
need.
Everything.
So anyway, you pay attention to that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
But that art form you talked about, tuning a traditional bow, it's like there's some stuff you can do to the bow, very little though in comparison. Yeah. Like almost, and why you're probably so ate up with doing arrows is because when it comes to the traditional world, everything comes down to the arrow.
Yeah.
I mean, you're tuning the arrow.
You're tuning that bow to that arrow.
You're not really, you're kind of tuning the bow, but more than anything, you're tuning the arrow.
Well, and that's a perfect example. Is I can take any arrow and tune it to my compound. I might have to do some crazy stuff, but you can get it to fly.
Yeah.
Like I can take my wife's 500 spines.
You can get it to paper tune.
Low enough on point weight and high enough on back weight and, chain shims and I can get that to tune.
Yeah. I
can force it. But as with a recurve, again, you've got to figure out what that bow likes. And if it don't like it, you ain't going to fix it. Like,
yeah.
I can't shoot a 200 spine arrow off my recurve. Whereas I can tune a 200 or a 400 spine to my compound.
Sure.
Where's it going to perform the best at? A 300. But
yeah. Or what's going to give you the best kinetic energy.
Exactly. But that is part of why I like traditional archery. Is you've got to figure out what my bow likes.
Yeah.
And why. Like why is it the silencer? Let's figure out that. You know what I mean? Is my tiller a bit off? If you've got an ILF system, change your tiller. I mean, you know what I mean? So
yeah, and I guess brings up a good point with the ILF. Like the bows that I'm shooting,
single piece long.
They're all one piece wood constructed bows.
Yeah.
So there's limitations to what I'm able to do.
Why
with
did
them.
You choose a long bow?
It's sexy. I mean, long bows are
wow.
sexy. I mean, when I pull up to a trailhead in Colorado and I pull out my black and white ebony stalker stick bow dingo.
Oh, he's getting sexy now.
I mean, people are going to look.
He's talking sexy talk.
And they're like, you hunt with that?
So you mean you don't like my Eichler recurve?
I mean, it's fine, but that's not my jam.
This just in. Fred Eichler, he don't like your recurve.
I like wood.
Yeah.
I don't like metal risers as much as I prefer wood. And that's the same, like, that's just my natural taste. Like, when it comes to knives, handle material.
Like wood and leather.
I like wood and leather. I will work with micarta, G10, and synthetic handle materials. But my preference is beautiful natural hardwoods.
Yeah.
Stabilized if necessary, but sometimes that's not necessary. And then when it comes to sheaths, I only work with leather. If you ask me for a Kydex sheath, I will send you to my buddy that will make a Kydex sheath for you. I won't do it because that's my preference.
Yeah.
Same for my bows. I prefer beautiful natural hardwoods with highly figured grain, and to me that appeals to me, and I want to carry that in the woods. And so like when it comes to longbow versus recurve, that because I have both, and I do enjoy shooting both, but to me the one biggest difference as to why I prefer shooting a longbow over a recurve is the durability. The longbow can handle more abuse than the recurve. I have had recurve limbs twist. I have never once ever had a longbow limb rotate. Now, these are all stored the same. These are stored properly. Like it's not an issue of me resting it on the weight of the bow on its limb leaning in the corner.
Yeah.
Like I there's something to be said for the durability factor of a longbow. They're a little lighter physical weight.
Quieter.
They're lighter, they're quieter, and to me they're just
more forgiving.
Sexy. So I just naturally am drawn towards longbows, but I do have recurves. They're beautiful. They shoot great. They're fun. I've killed animals with recurves. I just like longbow better.
Yeah. Back to the turkey feathers.
We're bad about this today. Yeah, the rabbit
good
hole
at
train is.
Dude, I'm a rabbit hunter at heart, dude. If I see a rabbit, dude, I take off for it.
Yeah, it's like a dog and a squirrel.
Yeah.
So yeah, when it comes to making feather fletching, getting access to a wing that's in decent shape and not been, drug across the gravel road or like all tore up. You're gonna take you got your primary feathers and your secondary feathers on the wing. Secondary feathers are worth hanging on to. You can make flu-flus and you can do other things with the secondaries, but they're not as stiff.
Right.
The feather itself is a little softer, so you know that there are a difference between the primaries and secondaries. You get your primaries pulled, and then with a razor blade, very carefully, you're going to split that quill. And
so you still want half the quill.
You still want the quill on. Yeah, that's what's holding those feathers together. And so you're going to split that quill, and it tapers. So it's going to be thick on one end and taper down to nothing on the other. And so you're at some point when you're splitting that quill, you're going to
run out,
fall off the quill, and that's where you stop. The idea is to get as much of a good quill as you can, because if you're careful, you can get, depending on the length of the feather you're going to run. Like I think mine are 5.5 inch feather cut. My feather chopper is a 5.5 inch shape. I can get 2 if I'm real careful and it's a good feather on a good bird. I can get 2 off of one side. If you
it's a lot easier to just order feathers, right?
Yeah, but they're expensive, and they're not as cool.
No, they're not as cool.
But so same could be said for my knives.
There you go.
You can go to Walmart and grab one for
$50. That's a salesman right there.
And you can get one that's way cooler from me for more, but
way cooler.
Yeah,
guaranteed to kill more animals.
But you're not done yet after you split the quill, because it's going to be kind of gnarly, and
that's actually what I was.
There's like a foam. I would describe it as a foam-like core.
Yeah. To
the inside of that quill, and you're gonna sand it flat. So it's literally when I did it most recently, I took a portable belt sander, flipped it upside down, and stuck it in my vise, my bench vise, and very carefully, because you can ruin it in this stage real quick. You want to flatten out that cut that you made. You flatten it out. And most of the guys that are going to try this have seen like a bought feather. If you've bought a feather, you know what that quill's supposed to look like. And so you're going to sand it flat, not too thick, not too thin. You're going to get it to where it looks like the ones you buy from, what is it, True Wing? Is that the brand of the True Flight? True Flight. You're going to look at your True Flights, and you're going to make it look like that. You're going to sand it flat and then square it up. Sometimes it's real big, real fat, so you're going to take your razor blade and you're going to trim off some of the excess and just clean it up to get it ready to glue. Then after that, I use a chopper. You can do a burner where you have a hot wire that you rotate the feather through to shape. I have a chopper. So Three Rivers sells choppers. You can get variety of different lengths and or shapes. You lay that in there the way it's supposed to go on the chopper, take your mallet, boom, cuts you out a perfect feather.
Look, Nick's way cooler than me. I just call Three Rivers, and I'm like, I need 5-inch feathers, right helical. What do you got?
Yeah, and that's great. You know, there's nothing wrong with that. The fact that you're even fletching them yourself is awesome.
So does it make you mad that I shoot trad vanes instead of using feathers?
No, and I'll tell you why.
Because these are better, and you know that? That's why you...
No, but because I've been in the woods in torrential downpour.
And you can't shoot.
And no, you just have to take precaution. Like I have powder. I have feather powder.
I don't have to take precautions.
Or a Ziploc. I know. That's the point. It's the same thing, though, when it comes to a natural hardwood knife handle versus synthetic.
Yeah.
This is the difference. You have a synthetic material versus a natural material.
That performs better.
That is going to be beneficial in different ways. Feathers can be better for one thing. Trad vanes can be better for another. Same for synthetic handle on a knife versus synthetic vane. Your climates in which, like if you're in the Pacific Northwest and it rains constantly, a trad vane is going to be awesome.
I'll tell you why I shoot them. Water, which is a big one. The second one is it's free FOC because these are lighter than 3 5-inch feathers. So just by shooting these, I'm getting free front of center weight.
Yeah, but how much are we talking about? I mean, that's got to be the difference of a couple grains.
We can measure it when we're done.
If you were to measure those 4 trad vanes versus 3 5-inch feathers, I bet it's only a couple grains.
We'll measure when we're done.
I understand that argument, but it can't be much.
It's not a massive difference, but again, it's coming down to those things that like all these little things that we're talking about, in my opinion, add up.
I have heard though from a number of people that those trad vanes tune really well.
Oh yeah, I love them, man.
I just like with wood and leather, I prefer the natural material.
You were born a couple generations late.
Like a natural barred turkey feather. Yeah. A natural barred turkey feather to me looks really cool. And if you were to throw a white cock vane on there or a blaze orange cock vane or whatever.
Don't get me wrong. Trad vanes will never be something pretty. Like it's never going to be something like, oh my gosh, you see that new Arrow build? Like they're plastic. They're trad vanes. They're all one color. They're all mass produced. Like it's never going to be an attention getter. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
16.4. On the 4 trad vanes. It's never going to be that like super attention getting like pretty, oh my gosh, did you see those feathers, you know?
That shield cut's one of my favorite shapes.
Oh, for sure.
Love
like
that.
If I'm going to shoot feathers, which I have arrows that are fletched with feathers. Because again, like if I want to build a pretty set, I'm going to use feathers. Crap, these are lighter.
That's funny.
Crap. Well, guys, hey, listen, I'm man enough to admit when I'm wrong. But the said feathers the first time I did this, just the feathers were different and happened to be heavier.
Well, shield cut is a lighter cut. Like mine that I shoot are what's called a Pope and Young cut, which is a bigger feather than shield or parabolic. It's a bigger profile. And I bet you that mine do way more. Than the trad vane. I
don't remember what feathers I was measuring when I made that statement, when I figured that out. But those said feathers were heavier.
But my broadheads, those broadheads are big.
Yeah.
Like that Simmons broadhead is big.
Yeah.
And so I like having a bigger rudder at the back of the ship.
Yeah.
A littler vane to me would be more appealing if I was shooting a smaller broadhead.
Right. So what is I ask every one of my guests for a tip. What is your
We already there? We're at the end?
knife care? You said you wanted to leave. You're like, I got to get out of here, bro.
I do have some things to do.
Your knife carrying tip, knife sharpening, knife carrying in the field, in the kitchen, something, knives.
Yeah. I think that a disclaimer that I would be happy to provide anybody when it comes to my knives versus others is the type of steel that I'm working with is high carbon steels. And mostly that's because those are the most friendly for forging.
Yeah.
Most of your stainless steels are not forgeable. There is a select few that require different heat treats. But I don't want to get into the weeds of that. In a very simple form and fashion, most of your stainless steels are stock removal in their method of creation, meaning they're ground. Everything's done with a grinder or cut. And the high carbon steels that I'm using are very friendly to be forged with. And I like forging, so those are good for me to work with. Now, the downside is that those high carbon steels are susceptible to rust. Most of your stainless steels are way more corrosion resistant. High carbon steel can rust, and you want to treat them accordingly the same way in which you would a firearm. If you were to take a firearm that you were out in the middle of a rainstorm and throw it in its case and leave it, you put it away wet, when you take it back out again, it's going to have some rust on it.
Yeah.
My knives are the same way. You don't want to put it away wet. It's fine if it gets wet. Like, nothing's going to happen if it gets wet, but you don't want to put it away wet. So you want to wipe it dry, or if you waded through a creek and your sheath is completely saturated, you don't want to leave it in a wet sheath. You can do what you need to do on your hunt. You don't want to put it on your nightstand at home in its wet sheath. Pull the knife out of the sheath, store them separately until the sheath's dry, and then put it back. So when it comes to just normal care, treat it like a gun. Keep it dry. Other than that, there's a number of different products that are similar to this, but this is a beeswax paste. A lot of people wipe guns down with a gun oil. You could wipe knives down with a gun oil too, or any kind of oil. You could use canola oil if you wanted to, and it will work. But I like using this paste. It's a beeswax paste. It's food safe. It's very easy to work with, and it does its job really, really well. But I just wipe it. I'll put it this way. A knife that's used every day, like this one that I'm carrying, you never have to deal with this because you're using it all the time. It's in and out of its sheath all the time. A knife that's sitting on a shelf or in a safe or in a drawer for months in the off season before you're in the field again, wipe it down with something like this. Put it just with your finger, rub it on there, wipe it clean with a rag, and put something on there, an oil or a beeswax paste, to keep it from being affected by humidity or moisture.
Very cool.
So those are the two biggest things. Is just fend off the rust, and it'll last forever. And then keep it sharp.
You want to know that for a fact? Enter to win this one. You can know that it'll last forever. Guys, make sure and get in on the giveaway. It's going to go for one more week, so don't miss your chance at this knife, a recurve, and a dozen arrows. Click the link in the bio and enter that giveaway. Check out Nick's Knifeworks on Facebook, on Instagram, on his website. Dude is absolutely killing it, making some of the greatest knives I've ever seen. So go check him out. I have heard from several hardcore knife enthusiasts that they're impressed with Nick. So check out his knives, check out his website, his social media. A lot of cool videos of him making the stuff, which is just super interesting. So go follow him, like him, subscribe to him. Guys, thank you for listening. Y'all have a fantastic week.